Hi, this is Thursday, March 19th, 2020. And I just realized I had left my Bible upstairs and had to run up and get it. Sorry. I'm a minute late. At least I didn't have technical trouble today. Uh, Waiting for Elly to come in. She's got the link. Hopefully it'll work this time for her. Um, as I was running back down here with my Bible, I was going through in my mind John 14, 1 and 2. Sorry if I turn my cell phone off. Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions or many rooms. If it were not so, I would have told you, lo, I go and prepare a place for you. So if Jesus has to prepare for us, then it certainly makes sense that there are things that we should be doing to prepare, or should have been doing to prepare for what we seem to be facing right now. There's Elly. Hi, lady.
Hey.
Pretty, you and your pretty top.
Oh, thank you.
Um,
This old
John,
thing?
whatever. I would just mentioning John 14, 1 and 2. Jesus said that we're not to let our hearts be troubled. Um, I just heard a report. I just got off the phone with a friend who's a financial advisor who listens a lot to Martin Armstrong. And he told me to go to martinarmstrongeconomics.com and see. He has written a letter to the president and sent many copies to congressmen and Mnuchin and various people, hoping that the president will hear it. He was wondering if Larry had been taken out. Now, as far as I know, his condition remains what it has been. But, not being able to know anything, it certainly makes us wonder. I don't think anything has happened to his wife, I'm hoping, because Elly has reported that the car location changes. So, I don't know. I mean, I've been on the phone with this financial advisor
Well,
a couple of times today, and
Mariella,
yes, ma'am.
there's been a few times I've went by when I've said the lights are on, but I didn't stop. They have a like a storm door, and it when their door is open, you can see right into their house, and a lot of the times that's open. So and then there's times where it's closed. So I don't think she would have it open if they were in real bad danger.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know, I
no.
don't know though.
Well, Larry keeps things open so that he can keep an eye on things and he can
Mhm.
react quickly. And you certainly would know that the dog would do something. And
Oh yeah, the dog barks big
yeah, I
time,
mean,
more than mine does.
Ro- Rosie's not a little dog, so
No.
Rosie is very protective. So that's pretty awesome. There I go. What is it that this time, about 5 minutes after we start every day, I go and swallow and inhale and swallow at the same time, and then I go into a coughing fit. Oh my goodness. So I'm going to go ahead and start with some scripture besides John 14, but please remember we're not to let our hearts be troubled, because fear gives the devil a foothold into your life, and that's the last thing any of us want to be doing. So if no fear, no fear, we have got to conquer that, and we conquer that with the word of God.
Mhm.
So
Fear for swap your fear for faith and
yeah,
hope.
absolutely. All right, so Psalm 132:1. Oh Lord, remember this. The verse says, "Oh Lord, remember David and all the hardships he endured." And I'm going to say, "Oh Lord, remember Larry and all the hardships he and his wife have endured."
Mhm.
Here's an interesting one. Psalm 137 verses 1, 2, and 4. Let's see. By the rivers of Babylon, we sat and wept when we remembered Zion. There on the poplars, we hung our harps. How can we sing the songs of the Lord while we're in a foreign land? And my response to that was to think how everything is different now. Chris was saying last night on the prayer call last night, or the conference call last night, that something had definitely changed last Sunday on the day of prayer. He could feel a big change. And yes, Sherry, fear is not of God. One way to think about what we are facing, what we are going to face, is when you read about what happened with Israel before they ended up being taken off to Babylon with Nebuchadnezzar, and then Sennacherib took Israel, and then Nebuchadnezzar took Judah. And then they got over there, and they were so depressed they didn't want to sing anymore. But remember what I said yesterday from Psalm 119. We are to praise the Lord at least 7 times a day. So, we're at a stage where God is very angry with the sin that's going on. And, that's back to what Larry would say about 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, this arrogance has got to go. American arrogance is a big issue. Humble themselves and pray, seek the Lord's face, and turn from wicked ways. Then he will hear, forgive, and heal the land. Sin brings about God's anger, and then he allows an enemy to control us. And we're not going to want to sing. We're not going to want to rejoice and be happy when that happens. But we still are supposed to do what God says to do. In everything, give thanks, because our thanks, first of all, God inhabits the praise of his people. So if he's inhabiting, we talked yesterday about the intimacy we have with the Lord because of that. But in everything, give thanks. Even if it's not something you feel thankful for. I hope as you've watched me wait nearly a year to get this house on the market, get it sold, and get moved, it's not been easy to say thank you, God, for what you're doing. And when I think of the fact that I'm going to be supposed to move and God has told me where to go, and then we're looking at maybe all the interstates being shut down. Oh my goodness. So, God's just pushed me right to the wire. And I hope that's an encouragement to you, seeing that I'm not totally falling apart. I'm kicking and screaming my way through this sometimes. But Psalm 138:7 says, though I walk in the midst of trouble, you preserve my life. And that immediately made me think of Psalm 91. 1,000 will fall at your side and 10,000 at your right hand, and it won't come near you. And then Psalm 138, verse 8, the Lord will preserve his purpose for me. Your love, O Lord, endures forever. Do not abandon the work of your hands. So God has his hand in this. God has his hand on you. And, he will not abandon you. And so if you are feeling fear, that's false evidence appearing real. One of the things Martin Armstrong apparently said today, that I was with this call that I got from somebody who was very excited about understanding what's going on. And it's like, yeah, you got it. I believe what's happening is that, how real this virus is. The question was asked, where's the proof that these people that the deaths they're counting are really coronavirus and not something else? We know that they have had meetings and planning sessions, well in advance of this and preparing for it and so on. And Martin Armstrong apparently was showing whoever he's some kind of financial guy. So apparently he was showing this morning, something that he'd come across. And
It's only, this has been so, it's really not a pandemic as much as it is um, over mediaized because, but you got to blame the Democrat liberals for this because they were the ones feeding the info to, the New York Times and the Post and CNN, and because they got connections. I mean, it was proven when they were going through the impeachment hearings and on how they, um, with the Russia stuff. And if people paid attention, they would see how the leaks went to the media through channels of Adam Schiff and Brennan and a few Comey. I believe Comey was even just giving it to him. But when they got a hold of the coronavirus, they assumed that it would ruin Trump. And it was a great idea to them. And they did it, and they put him down for it. He didn't act on it. The dumb thing is, I mean, I'll tell your viewers like I tell mine, I totally agree with Mark Levin when he says they're idiots. They're idiots because they don't bother to check out what's going on, not in the media world, in their dream world, but the real world, to find out who's doing what, because they would have seen that Trump was doing stuff and he had acted on everything quick. It was within, I'm going to say 2 weeks or less after we knew it was getting bad. And when they got caught in that, what did they do? Oh, he called it a hoax, and they just keep going with it. And they're the ones that kept mentioning the stupid toilet paper. It was the media. They would say, oh, you'll need to stock up on toilet paper. That's the Operation Mockingbird. Everything they were talking about, that and milk and meat and, oh, the wipes and the Lysol. Make sure you get that and buy plenty of them, and hand sanitizer. And they kept saying it over and over and over again. And it turned it into a stupid mass hysteria. And and that's what you call media propaganda. And you know what? I see at this point where he has gotten it to, he's shutting it down. Because when I see that CNN, what did Joe Scarborough said, oh, well, what Trump's doing, well, he's doing a good job, and he's taking care of things. They're starting to turn because they're getting shut out, and he's telling them to shut up in these conferences.
well,
And, amen to that, sometimes you have to put on the full armor of God and say, you know what, you're not going to get me. You're going to strike me, and it ain't going to hurt. And, I love President Trump. What he has done is he beat them at their own stupid little game.
He saw this plan before he came into office. When they were doing the transition, he was told all about this was coming. Now, don't forget, folks, by 2017, Obamacare said we would all be chipped. So we're overdue, and they don't want to wait any longer. They want their new world order, and they are crashing the economy. I'm giving my opinion, but it is based on some things I'm getting from some other people. Like this one call I got, called me back twice today. And, he had listened to what Martin Armstrong had said and what the letter says that he's sending to President Trump to talk about this. That, if they shut down the banks, if the military is taking over the big box stores, if the military is in charge, then that's the government in charge. If they are giving money to everybody, canceling loans or canceling interest rates or, putting them on hold. This is socialism, folks. This is socialism. And they've been able to take over the country without a single fight. No gun fired, no screaming against Congress. We're all in lockdown now, so we can't congregate and get together and go do something. This is pretty remarkable to watch. And I hope President Trump truly is on our side and hasn't been taken over somehow. Interesting to watch. It's really interesting to watch. He has to say that it's going to get better and this is going to blow over. He has to say that. He has known that they are going to do everything they can to take him out. But, is this some kind of game that he's doing, that he's pretending to go along with them? Or, the incredible actor he is? I just don't know, folks. Now, I believe with Larry that the fact that they hated him so aggressively in the beginning meant he was our only choice for a good president. And he's done a fabulous job. But, Kennedy made it clear that he was planning to take out the Fed and he was going to change things. And, he was taken out. And certainly Trump knew that with what he was taking on, that his life and family was going to be in danger. Sherry, that's so funny. I have got to read that out loud. There's a family who collects street rod cars, and his cars are stacked with toilet paper inside his garage. Hey, wherever you need to keep it, right? Oh my goodness. So, if we're going to be chipped, I was asking the guy who called me to talk about this financial stuff. And I said, well, I have wondered about buying a house because then it's mine and, maybe they can't take it away. But then, and then I've used my money without the bank taking it all and it being gone. If truckers are not allowed to buy guns and ammo. I guess it depends on what state you're in, but there is some crackdown on crossing state lines if you've got guns and ammo with you.
Yeah, it depends on what state. Well, the thing about it is with the guns is there's lots of them being sold right now, big time, one-time owners. There's a lot of people that will go into the gun shops and the first thing they want is a handgun because it's easiest. And so you go in and you fill out the paperwork. There is what they call a 5, 10, sometimes a 20-day cool off period is what they call it for most states, which means you don't walk out with the gun. I don't really think there is a state you can go in and buy a handgun and walk out. No. So you're thinking, oh, they wouldn't sell me a gun. No, the problem is people don't want to wait. And I mean, there's some shotguns and rifles that you can, I think maybe like a 30-30 that you can, walk out the door with. But for the most part, there is a waiting period. And, because they have to run the background check on you. They look into your federal and state police, to see if you've done any crimes. And that takes 48 to 72 hours on some of them. And sometimes it's 7 days. California has a lot stricter laws, and so does New York. Because New York, I think you can, but I think there's so many restrictions. If not, they've went all the way to nothing. But so if they're saying, they're not being able to buy guns, that's probably the problem, unless they're out. Ammunition is very hard to get. My family reloads. So, because this is Arkansas, it's one of the biggest duck hunting states ever, fishing and hunting. And so, we're on the hunting part of it. But, I don't think it's a good idea for a bunch of people to run out and get guns as first time owners, because for the most part, they're probably not going to go through a gun safety class. And what was it? What was the thing in the Christmas story? You're going to shoot your eye out. That's it right there. They're going to shoot their toe, or they're going to shoot somebody. You just really, if you're going to get a gun, go through the safety class, because it's very informing. That's to me, that's scary. But I think that's probably what they're running into, is they just can't walk out the door with it. We went, it was about a year ago, we were in a store looking at different bows. And we were up at the gun counter, and this guy came in, and he was all ready to buy, found out he had to wait, and he said, well, forget it. If you're not going to sell me a gun, I ain't going to get it here, and left. So, yeah, you have to know what you're doing when you're shooting a gun. Take it to a gun range. In fact, one of the biggest indoor gun ranges is run by a lady, and she was running it for governor against Asa Hutchinson for a long time. I think she finally gave up. I think if one or two of your viewers know who she is. And she's got one of the biggest indoor gun ranges, shooting ranges. And that's pretty cool. So, but yeah, she don't advertise it much. I've been wanting to go down there. It's down past Little Rock. So,
the Bible says the chip's coming, or some kind of mark. Something's going to be in your hand or your forehead. Now, whether it's some latex thing, or something that you can see, something you can't see, I don't know. I said at the beginning, I think I said, there's not been any change with Larry, so we just wait to hear. Mark tried to contact family, and they didn't answer again, so I'm kind of wondering why I'm paying Larry's phone bill if nobody's using it, but I'll find that out in a couple of weeks, and we'll deal with that at that point. So, I don't know anything more other than Mark said he's still, whatever his situation's been for the last couple of weeks, it's still the same, whatever it is. There's just, no update. So, anywho, so go ahead, Elly, if you've got something else.
I had a warning on my show for the FDIC. There's scammers that's calling and saying they're with the FDIC and they're at your bank, and that there is issues because of the coronavirus shutting down, that they need account numbers. And people are falling for it. They said a lot of elderly. So be careful. Be very, very careful with this one.
Nobody is going to call you and on the phone ask you for your social security number or an account number. I don't care how scary their story is.
Yeah.
I mean, I've gotten those calls too. Your social security's changing, and you need to verify, and you need to call this number, and I just hung up on them.
You were talking fear, and then we talked about, with Larry. And, when he was here, and he was part of AFTA, and then, the stuff he's done. A lot of people listen to Larry, and a lot have read his book. And Marianne, you could probably help me through this one. And when he left, he copied a lot of papers. And, Vince Foster did the same thing. And, when I always hear the Vince Foster story, that could have been Larry. That I think that was how they were really going to do him, because him and Larry were pretty much both at the Rose Law Firm together, and Vince Foster was more of a like a corporate lawyer in a way, and he was part of Whitewater, and he knew a lot of stuff. And he not only that, but he knew um, Bill since early high school. They grew up together. They were. I think they're both were born in Hope, if I remember right. I'd have to check out all my details.
Well, I knew they were school buddies.
Yeah, and they were close. And it's almost a mirror story, because in the long run they go, he Vince Foster, it was mentioned him being in a depression afterwards, and when you listen to the family members here, they said he wasn't. He was happy. He was ready to leave them. He was fearful to leave, and I think he just let it out to too many people. And of course, he went and he went and copied a lot of papers. And then he had a lot in his briefcase. His briefcase, I believe, disappeared. That had a lot of that info. But supposedly, by some of the sources I got here, he had boxes full that he had disappeared. And it was, a few days before he was found in the park. And he was supposed to be staying here in Arkansas. And so he, out of the blue, was called to Washington, which is weird, and he went. And then, he was planning to come home that night. There was nothing, anything about Vince Foster that he was in a depression. He was happy he was walking away. And, the other one that walked away was, that little scrawny guy that kept getting the rashes. Stephanopoulos? Stephanopoulos? Is that? He does like Face the Nation or
Stephanopoulos.
That's him. The same way with him. He, the story I got on him, it was almost the same way. He wanted to leave because they scared that kid so bad, he would whelp up. You would see him here, and it almost looked like he had a really bad case of acne until you got close to him, and it was actually like a mask on his face of a rash, and it was raised probably a quarter of an inch. I mean, it was whelped, his whole body. And then, the Clintons would leave the state, and then he'd start looking good again. And, but he walked away, but he stayed with the Clintons, and, and he lived, But, as you look back, I might even do a thing on Vince Foster tomorrow, because it so mirrors Larry Nichols and the fear. They were both very close. They both had grand expectations of having a wonderful job, not only in the governor's mansion and for the governor, but for the White House. And then they found out how crooked and evil they were, and they both wanted out. And you even hear this. There's a lady here that was a good friend of theirs, also named Dolly. I don't know if Larry knew Dolly. She was a friend of Bill's, and she's even talked on things how, when you're ready to go, you had best take your info on what you've given to the Clintons and more, because they will turn and they're going to burn you for every penny you got. They will keep you in court until you're penniless. And they have done that so many times here, to judges and attorneys and police chiefs. a lot of the troopers that walked away and said no, they were tired of what he was doing and how, the evil that he was doing. They ruined them, and it's just Barry Seal. Barry Seal's a kind of his own man in himself. I think he was bigger than Clinton, to be honest. And they Barry Seal and Bill Clinton and you got to include Hillary. She's a businesswoman. Um, they used Barry Seal as much as Barry Seal used them, because you got to remember Barry Seal was not only delivering the drugs um, to Arkansas, it was Florida, it was Southern California. He was making sure it was shipped up into Chicago, shipped from Mexico all the way into San Francisco. Um, Barry Seal had his own little enterprise going, and Bill Clinton was just a part of it. And see, the thing with Bill Clinton, and then that's when you're talking Iran-Contra. And poor Larry, oh my goodness, every time, when I do Iran-Contra and the drugs, it just always reminds me of what Larry had to escape and hide from. I mean, the fear of what he knew of what was going on in Arkansas. I mean, I could only imagine the fear, not only for him, but his wife, and I know they had a beautiful home here. But you know what? When they strip you and you've got to hide, but where do you hide and who do you call when they do come for you? There's nobody to call.
That's the biggest thing, and that's the scary thing about socialism. If something goes wrong, who are you going to call? There is no advocate.
So pretty much with Barry Seal and the Clintons and President Bush, it was a very unique arrangements because they needed the guns. So they basically had the guns. They had them altered here in place in Jacksonville. It was an armory. And then they shipped the guns not only to the Contras, but then they shipped them to Iran. So we were giving guns to Iran, and we were also giving them to the Contras. That's why it's Iran-Contra. And so that's where Barry Seal was using our own government, basically, because the CIA was in on it. I've even talked to a man personally that seen Oliver North on the tarmac in Mena, Arkansas. And he was a pastor. And some of you might know, his name was Pastor Arnold Murray. A very, very nice man, very truthful man. And that's what was seen. And so really they used each other. Barry Seal used Bush. Barry Seal used Clinton. I really don't think Barry Seal was a big, because when they left and the whole thing busted out, they just moved everything north. They moved the airstrips, and they kept doing it. I mean, to this day, I think they're still pushing the heroin with the cartels, even without Barry Seal. It's still being done. And that's what some of the pilots will tell you, that they just moved the airport north of Mena. They have a couple airstrips in like Missouri, and there's some out in some cornfields. They're still pushing it. And it's all, it's not so much cocaine is trying to push the heroin was next. And because they can make more money off of it, and crack. And that's the drug trade of the government. I'm not sure who's in charge of it now. I just know that it's still pushing up through the cartel by the masses. I mean, look at the fentanyl that's coming over the border, or they'll find like massive amount of cocaine. There was a time that the poppy fields in Afghanistan were being protected for the trade. And Iran even had poppy fields that, no, we weren't protecting them, but it was being shuffled in a way from Iran through Al Qaeda, Al Qaeda and the Taliban, and that was right before 9/11. So, I mean, I hope this is information y'all didn't know, but see, this is stuff Larry knew. You know, think about when actually Larry Nichols actually got away from him, and he knew it was going on and on and on, because Barry Seal, that was in the mid '80s. You know, that was mid '80s. That was during before, a little bit before, and into him being governor. So, I mean, it goes. They say that the drug trade with the CIA alone went back into the mid '70s, but then you know the pilots, Air America, that would be your drug trade that the CIA was using to even do drugs during Vietnam the same way. They get the cocaine. It's all about the cocaine, you know, and you know, you can even trace it back to when we had the World War One, I believe. You know, even my dad told me stories of the pilots that they offered cocaine to fly during right about World War II because they needed them awake to be able to fight in the war. Now, I don't know how true that was, but you know, that's something my dad told me because he was a pilot for a short time. And, you know, he just loved to tell me stuff. And, you know, so, you know, it's, if we did it before, and if we knew about the cocaine in World War II, then you're looking at Vietnam, we're shuffling our own CIA. And I hate the CIA. And a lot of people know the CIA was started by Grandpappy Bush, pretty much. He was one of the first ones. So then you've got the Bush family is so tied up in government. And, you know, and then I feel embarrassed because I voted for him. And I thought about it and I was like, you know what? No, I voted for Reagan. I didn't really vote for Bush. When Bush came up, I think I was voting for Mickey Mouse. No, it was that independent guy, Nader, Ralph Nader. I was young. I was young. Don't hold me against it. But you know something that's real interesting is when it was. I'm going to say it was a Clinton. I believe it was Clinton and Bush that were going for presidency, and we were on base, so it was in between 81 and 86, and it was that election, and we were in line. I'm going to say about an hour, hour and a half, and we got through the doors about 7 o'clock, and we got in there, and I remember thinking, okay, we could vote and we could still get home by 8:30. You know, if the way the line was going, we almost got to where we could vote, and they announced that Clinton had won, and that we just had to leave. We didn't get to vote.
Is that what they just did with Biden?
I mean, you talk about, and to this day, I don't even know why they did it. And they just said that's it. They won. Bye. We didn't get to vote. And you would not believe how many people were outside waiting to vote. I'm going to say at least.
That's illegal. But so since when did that matter?
And this was on Beale Air Force Base that this happened. It was on an air base. And they told us, nope, they've won. No need to vote.
That's got to be totally unconstitutional and illegal.
So how many places did that and still do it? I've always wondered that on, election fraud, because how many votes would have went in after that if they wouldn't have cut California off and told everybody to quit voting? You know, uh, that's why I'm so into watching the elections, because I looked into it so hard because it was like, there's got to be a law against that.
Oh
And
yeah.
then for the Clintons to make it after I found out what the Clintons had been doing. And, I was warning everybody, don't vote for those people. You don't know about them. They're evil. And I couldn't, no one would listen. And I kept saying, how they ruined the state. And, oh, and then, everybody fell for him so hard and how wonderful he was. And it was like gag. I'm a Valley girl. Gag me with a spoon, period. Because it drove me nuts for them people. Sickened me every day, and see, Larry was going through that during that time too. And he knew what they were doing. But, he was in the midst of it. He was in the fear of it. The watching them, because they played with guns. Bill Clinton liked playing with guns. Not like to the point of like Elvis, but he liked playing with guns. They loved going out to it's what they call Camp Robinson here. And when they were in town, they used to go out there, and this was like in 85, 80, 85, 86, I believe. No, it had to be, right in there. And they would they would buy a herd of deer from local people from like out of Texas, and they'd fly them in, and then they would turn them loose and they would shoot them with military grade machine guns. And they'd use grenades, and they just weren't nice people. I don't remember the Bushes ever being out there. 'Cause we had a friend that his dad was, I believe, like a captain out at Camp Robinson at the main base there. And we used to hear all kinds of stuff they did on Camp Robinson. And they'd close it off. But, if you live close to it, you could hear it. You could hear the gunfire. And then people started sneaking in and getting pictures. So there's pictures out there somewhere. Oh, Chris, Al Franken, we're giving him money. Oh my goodness, it's part of that. You remember I was telling you about the Drain the Swamp thing I did? That I was going to do for the show one of these days. He gets like money from the government for being a farmer. That's what it is. He gets like $1 million a year for farming in Hyde Park.
In Hyde Park?
Yes.
Where are you going to have a farm in Hyde Park?
Ask Al Franken.
That's city.
I believe it's him. I'd have to pull my notes, but that's some of the Drain the Swamp info that I want to do for you guys one of these days.
So did you see the question about Oliver North?
What?
Dreamin asked if Oliver North was in on the drug running and drugs and everything, gun running and drugs and stuff. What was his role in all of that?
I got the chance to look at Oliver North face to face, and I asked him, and I said, you know what? I was there. I had friends that was there, and he about cried. He had, tears welled up in his eyeballs when I asked him out and out. He wasn't mean. He was very nice, okay? But when I asked him that question, that you were there and you knew about it. And, I knew that he had, but, when you watch the Iran-Contra hearings, and I don't suggest it, it is like, oh my God, it took me 2 weeks of watching for 4 or 5 hour days worth. It was long. but he basically was caught red-handed in the middle of it. And when Mena, Arkansas was mentioned, they stopped the hearing and they went into closed sessions for it. And that killed me because I'm to this day I'm still trying to get the info of what they said behind closed doors. And then, like 2 or 3 months ago, Tom Fenton got it. He got the transcripts of what was said behind closed doors, and it was like the first page. There was kind of the info of where who was kind of there. It was who was there was all blacked out. The info for the first page and what they looked into was all blacked out. The second through 90 pages was totally blacked out. Then there was a conclusion page that names were all marked out, so it was in and went and over and stuff like that. It made no sense. And then the whole bottom was blacked out. That was the report we got. It was like 90, maybe a little over 100 pages. I mean, I was so excited when I heard we got it. And it was like, what? Nah. Oh, man. I said some really nasty, I called Hillary a lot of bad names that day. So, but the thing with Oliver North is, yes, he was a part of it, but he was more, I don't think he was as much into the drugs. I think he was part of the guns to Iran. But I believe he did know about the drugs. He, because he was on the tarmac here. And the only thing they did here was alter planes, and they would pack the Cessnas up with the drugs to drop throughout the valley from Mena to almost Little Rock. And even, I think, over even in Searcy, they did some of it. And I believe in a little bit into Missouri. I could be wrong, but I think that was his flight pattern. But yeah, Oliver North did know, but Oliver North, I think it was because when they did the split, okay, there was a point when Bush and Clinton went their ways, and Bush said, we're not doing nothing over with Iran. We don't need the guns, so I'm parting the ways. And Clinton was supposed to stop, but he kept going. He made a deal with pretty much, I think, Barry Seal because of the money. Well, hell, there was so much cocaine that he had. I mean, it was falling out his nose in places. There are Dolly and even Jennifer Flowers even said there was times they'd see him and you could see the white in his nose. It was so obvious. They were all. I'm pretty sure Larry told you how bad it was with him and Lassiter and the boys. Not the boys on the track, but I call them the boys that hung out with Bill Clinton. And I never ever heard that Larry Nichols did drugs. Now I heard he drank with them, but I never heard that he ever did drugs. I never heard that he knew of what happened with the boys, but I know he looked into it. I know that he was informed, I think, on the Dixie Mafia.
He did not know he was working with the Dixie Mafia until he left them.
Okay, so
how he was allowed to leave without, and leave alive is just.
Yeah, so see, it's for those that are kind of new with who I am and why I do all this is Larry Nichols lived through it. I followed and watched it happen through people that just happened to be kind of sort of a part of it. And, you know, they were like bystanders. They weren't in it. I don't even think they were, I think they were sightseers and seen things, or they knew people that were a part of it or seen it, or, you know, a police station that watched it, or a trooper that was there, you know. So I watched it as it unfolded for Larry. And that's one of the things Larry Nichols told me was, Elly, you verify, and make you made it so I know it's real to everybody. You know, I back him up, and he backs up my stories, because, you know, when we got on Jason Goodman, you could have swore we were scripted, and even on What's Right, What's Wrong, is that the name of it, with the pastor?
What's right?
Same
What's left?
way. The three of us, in fact, the three of us, it was like I was in the middle of it, but I wasn't. You know, I just watched it. I just watched it unfold, and and then you know, I did look into everything I could on Larry Nichols. I really did. Him and Linda Ives and Lassiter, Family Malik, Joyce Elders, because her son got all caught up in the cocaine too. He ended up, that poor kid, I bet you he was stuck on cocaine in early teens, like 13, 14.
Who was?
I believe it was Jocelyn Elders. What, didn't she go? She was Surgeon General, I think he made her. I'm so bad at names. So if I had the name, I could just say that was her. But when they left to go to Washington, he took her and Family Malik with him, and he made her, I believe, Surgeon General. Come on, someone, get the name for me. Y'all know Larry. So, but her poor son ended up being an addict. I believe what I was told by the around the I call it a hood, down there in the hood, in Little Rock, where, you know, a lot of Black Americans are. We call it the hood in California. I still call it the hood. You guys get me on all that slang. That's why we can't write a book, Marielle, because me. But they were saying he was stuck at like 13, 14 years old, that Lassiter and Bill Clinton had him stuck on cocaine. And
see, that Larry cared about kids.
Mm-hmm.
And he went to Bill Clinton when he found out Bill was involved in the gun running. He said, either you got 2 weeks, either you clean this up or I do. He said, the last thing I want is for Chelsea and Larry's daughter, who were playmates, is for them to get hooked on drugs. He says, I will not have my children on drugs. And you know, that Bill should care enough about his own daughter not to want her on drugs either. And before he even got home that day, the Clintons had turned on him, and all the kind of roasting that they had done against everybody else, he was now the victim.
Yeah. And you know, like I said, he's in the middle of all of this. I was like, you know, to me it was like Larry was in the middle of a gunfight, and he was just ducking in the middle, you know, of, you know, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be a part of this. You know, I'm looking for a way to get out without getting killed. And oh my goodness, you know, the more I looked into it, and the more I found out, you know, like the Dixie Mafia, and that's not even to include the KKK and the skinheads that was going on. And then of course, oh my goodness, you talk about Larry not wanting to be with the kids. When you know, something, you know, the doing stuff with the kids. I had found out through a friend, and she had 12 kids. I believe it was 12 or 13 kids. And she told me that they came to her because she had so many kids to be part of the Tony Lama cult, because Bill Clinton was looking for fresh, new girls. And she had like eight or nine girls. She must have, my gosh, I know it's more than 10 or 12, at least 15 kids that she had by herself. Well, her and her husband. But they made an offer to her because they wanted some of her 9 and 10-year-olds for Bill Clinton. And and that was back during that time, they said. She said, I couldn't believe that, for one, Tony Lama would want us to join his cult just because we had all these kids. And they were Latter-day Saints, though, part of that. And so you have a lot of kids and they wear the long skirts. And so I could see them being approached. But she said what blew her away more is that Bill Clinton wanted her 9-year-old, 9 or 10-year-old. And so they were looking for young girls back then. And I mean, you could only imagine these poor kids, and then you hear of, they could be sex trafficking and maybe sex trafficked young kids out of Haiti. And, when I see the little itty bitty kids like that are that age, it just, I just cringe of the thought that they're doing this, and you look into it and you get really deep, and, Bill Clinton and Epstein, and it's just horrible, what they were doing. And all I can find is 15-year-old girls and up of, what they were peddling and prostituting. I'm hoping one of these days we'll get enough on sex trafficking. But, Lassiter was the one that fessed up to a lot of it when, not only during the hearing, but a lot of court cases. And then he started bragging about it at book deals. Maybe by then him and Bill had a falling out. But Lassiter was just flapping his gums on everything. And the thing about it was he even talked about how dangerous it was for Larry Nichols. He even mentioned him and said, when Larry Nichols left, he said he was number one target for every anybody that worked for the Clinton that were hired hitmen.
Yeah, it's amazing that he has survived. That tells you, first of all, what a good soldier he is, and God's not done with him. There's a hedge of protection around him, and I can't believe that he is missing all of what's going on right now every day from the White House.
But it was nice talking about him tonight, but
yeah,
or today.
well, he knew it was coming, so.
And fear, I guess the whole thing with fear and me watching the fear.
Yeah.
When I seen him on the steps of the Capitol, oh, wow. And I told him that on the phone. I said, you know what? Then I knew that he was number one target. That was it. That was it. He was in deep danger when he left, and so what do you say? And it's like, even if he was in danger and they got in his house, it's who do you call? Who do you call? So, but his house did look pretty good the few times I went by. It didn't look like, if they were being threatened or anything. Their garage doors open a little bit. She had the lights all on out front. So I just wish I could see someone sitting inside or standing there or something.
No, you can't see. Can't see into the living room from the front door. I mean, somebody who's in the living room can see the front door, but you're not going to be able to see.
I'm not related to Larry Nichols. I am I started, it was the Clintons, really, that started it. And some people were telling me how corrupt and evil they were. And the more I was in Arkansas, and I lived in a small town that they put witness protection programs were there. And it was like 3 little towns that's where I lived. And we were in the Air Force, and there was no base housing for the first class when you first get in. So we had to live next to the base, which is Jacksonville Air Force Base. And so then I was working as a night manager for a little grocery store. And so all the locals had come in, plus these people that were part of the witness protection program. And they were telling me about the Clintons. So I heard a whole bunch of stuff, but it's like, so I release some of the stuff to you. I tell the stories and I tell you what I've learned from my sources. I just can't tell you who they were. And I could tell the story, but it's kind of classified on some of the stuff I release. So as it went along, then I heard about Larry Nichols. It was Nichols and Lassiter and Dan Harmon and Kirk Lamb, because they were known, and also the judge. I wish I could remember his name. They were all really, really crooked. And then there was Asa Hutchinson as Attorney General. And so the more I was there, then we met people, and then I become a CB radio operator. And I met a whole bunch of people on the radio. I've lived a happy life. So, but it was old guys. Back then it was just old men on the radio. And I was real young, and they thought I was really cute. And so they would tell me all the stuff I wanted to know about the Clintons. So then I got to know more, and they said, but keep your eye on Lassiter and Lassiter, Vince Foster, and Larry Nichols. One of them's going to run. And when they run, they're going to take the money. And then later on, after Larry Nichols had left, I kept an eye on what he was doing and what he was saying, and watching the Clintons, and Hubble and Socks the Cat. Yeah, and that was a big thing here too, was what Socks the Cat was doing. And Chelsea, because there were certain things that were coming out in circles about Chelsea. And they made her grow up very quickly. I'm not, I know a little bit on it, but I just want to wait and see on it. But so then after all that, and I kept watching them, then we moved back to California. And I had lots of friends here and lots of contacts. And of course, my brother Larry and my sister Beth, and we always were talking about the government doing what they do to us still, but earlier versions of it. And Larry was always talking Iraq and what he had learned. And so then when we moved back, I found where Lassiter was, and then I started looking into Larry Nichols. And that's when I found out, for the most part, about AFTA, Parkometer, VCCI, and the grant program. I knew a lot about the drugs when it was going on, because a friend of mine, not a friend, I can't even call him a friend. He was a kid that came in the store and played pinball all the time, and I'd have to kick him off at night. Well, he told me he watched some of the drugs being dropped. And he said he was going to go one night, and he wanted to snag it because he wanted to sell it. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he said, down by Saline. And he's dead. And the weird thing is, the boys on the track were run over by a train. He was run off a bridge and hit by a train. And
Elly, we're way over time. So I've got a whole bunch.
Yeah, so that's how I met Larry Nichols, and I've been looking and following him ever since. So I finally got to hook up with him. So I hope that.
I don't know if that's quite the word you want to use, because I don't think that part's true.
No, well, I still haven't met him, so, but I enjoy all the conversations that we had. We talked about a dozen times, and I enjoyed every minute of it. I really did. I think he enjoyed just because I made him laugh.
He's such a fascinating person.
So,
All right, folks, thank you. We will be back tomorrow, and God bless you. And I'm ending it kind of abruptly today. I'm sorry about that, but I've got a whole bunch of phone calls I've got to get made immediately. So thanks for being here. God bless you. Bye.